So how does this work? Bonjoro, are they personalizing the emails at all, or is this?
So you can create the template, but
Okay.
essentially what happens is a little alert pops up when you download the app. An alert pops up that says, Joshua just made a purchase, or Joshua just purchased these shoes. And then you open it up and you just press the button, and it's all very lo-fi, record a video. Hey, Joshua, blah, blah, blah. And you've pre-made the template, which might say something like, hey,
Right.
name tag. Thanks so much for shopping with us. Here's where your order is at. And then you just press go. But again, we're talking, 30 seconds. Even if you break this down in terms of dollars, the 30 seconds that would take to do it increases the customer lifetime value so dramatically. And it also reduces the rate of returns. Hey there, and welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. If you're looking to get more sales, more customers, master your marketing, and ultimately take control of your retail or e-commerce business, then you're in the right place. I'm Selena Knight, a retail growth strategist and multi-award-winning store owner whose superpower is uncovering exactly what your business requires to move to the next level. I'll provide you with the strategies, the tools, and the insight you need to scale your store. All you need to do is take action. Ready to get started?
What made you, how do you end up in these vastly different businesses? Well, they're relatively related, but they seem to be, a lot of work independently on its own. But you've managed to pull it off with, pretty high commitment in your personal life alone. So tell us your story.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a funny story, actually. I was in my corporate life, and I say corporate in air quotes for those who aren't watching. I was actually an arborist and a horticulturist. So I worked with trees, and I started off as a gardener, moved into working with trees, cutting down trees. And then from there ended up in project management and ended up working for the power line company, overseeing a lot of environmental things, but also the people who trim the trees around the power lines. And so the concept, I didn't really like kids, but somehow I ended up with a baby business. And it was just, I think it's like most retail and e-commerce store owners is they start a business because they found a gap in the market. And for me, this was back in 2007. There was no eco craze like there is back now. Like finding anything eco required a lot of hard work and usually importing it generally from the USA. And so when I became pregnant, I was trying to find these, obviously very sustainable person, trying to find these eco products and was having to import everything from the US and realized it would be better off if I was buying in bulk. Started kind of a little side business while I was working for the government, actually, and got to the point where I was selling in parenting forums because this was 2007. Like e-commerce was still pretty new back then. Yeah. Selling so much in parenting forums that I ended up having to, and I was just sending out PayPal invoices. It was just like so basic. Ended up building a website on Ecommerce, which I think you have to have been around a while to know about Ecommerce.
Ecommerce, I've never heard of it.
Yeah. Well, go back 15 years and you'll find Ecommerce as one of the first e-commerce platforms. Very, very clunky. And we were actually using that as our POS as well. So it was ridiculously difficult. And then it got to the point where I was making more money in my side hustle than I was working for the government. But I also really struggled with where I was in my corporate position, and again, corporate in air quotes, because at that point I was in project management and in a leadership role, but I was very ancillary because, trees are this very emotive thing. It's like people love them or hate them. And I remember saying to my boss at one point, I'd negotiated this ridiculously huge deal between all these stakeholders to keep a piece of land that was environmentally sensitive. And the cost to the government where I worked was $1,000. Like I'd gotten everybody to put all this money in and we'd worked months to try and get this done. $1,000. Like,
Right.
we're talking, they have multi-million-dollar budgets for everything.
Yeah.
And I remember my boss saying no. And I was like, no, hold on. Like, I've got the media, I've got everyone involved. And he's like, no, it's not in our best interest. And I remember saying, I still remember sitting down in front of him. He was a very large man who didn't come to work very often and had no respect from the team. And I remember saying to him, I was so frustrated because clearly I'm a very passionate person. Like, why am I here then? And he said to me, well, you're only here because the law says we have to have one of you.
No.
Yeah, your face was my face, right? That was the, like, WTF. You
What?
just told me I'm only here because I have to be here. And I think that was the beginning of the end where, because I was doing this stuff on the side, it got to the point where it was like, screw it. I can either go and work with babies or I can work with grown men who are behaving like babies. And, I know which one I prefer. And so that led me to leaving that very lovely, stable job that came with lots of benefits and a car and starting my own retail business because I did have the e-commerce side running by now. Mm-hmm. Opened my first store in 2008, which of course was global financial crisis.
Yeah.
My business degree hadn't taught me anything about global financial pandemics. So I didn't know anything about that. My business degree didn't really help me with a lot. I think it was just that, sheer will, determination and enthusiasm. That store grew. I mean, it was crap at the beginning. Like, I didn't know anything about what I was doing and there was lots of struggles, but it did grow. And I think when I got to the point where one day you can look back in hindsight and always see these turning points. And I remember it was a Saturday and I put the key in the lock and I turned it and I opened the door. And there was this little corridor as you first walked into the store. It's only about 2 meters long, maybe not even that. And you kind of walked in and turned around. And I remember opening up the door and taking 2 steps in and just looking at the walls and looking into the store and just going, like, what am I doing? Like, this is not working. And literally collapsed on the floor in tears. Thankfully, it was only 8 a.m. because I would go to work early. And I don't know what I used to do. I think I used to go there and just, make myself a cup of tea and flick through input. Who knows? One of the stupid things I used to do was spend way too much time in my store that I should have been spending with my, very, very young family. But I remember walking into the storeroom, tears streaming down my face, just sitting in the corner going, this was not what it was supposed to be like. You're doing these things, like everyone says, do what you love. But if you're not making money and having it stable and can see a growth plan, then like, what the heck? And I made a decision in that moment. I remember I got up and I made myself a cup of tea and I got a chocolate biscuit out of the fridge. I was like, you can do this, girl. You can do this. And I rang my husband and said, I'm selling my house. I was very lucky at the time. We were living in our own home, but before I'd met him, I had an apartment that I'd kept as an investment.
Right.
And he went, what? And I went, I'm selling the apartment. I'm selling the place. And he said, what? Like, why? And it was because at that point I had realized I'd done what so many people do, which is I had grown broke. Like, the business was growing, but I had no money. And it was the thing that forced me onto the floor was, what the heck am I doing wrong? Like, the sales are coming in. We've got a great profit margin. We've got an amazing brand. I'm literally out there speaking on stages. Why do we have no money? And I mean, I had been a director of a credit union at one point. So I knew, I understood money, but I didn't understand why we didn't have any. And so I said, I've worked out that I've gotten to the point where I need to have that cash injection in my business. And by then I'd been in business, I think it was maybe about 3 years. And so I couldn't go to the bank to get money because on paper we didn't have profit. We had great turnover, but there was no cash because everything, I was doing what everyone does. I reinvested it back into the business.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need the money to be able to grow the business. And so I did. I sold my apartment. and I invested a portion of that money into the business. But I was very strategic from that point on. And I think that is where, that saying, the breakdown to give you the breakthrough, instead of just putting money in, I said, I'm going to put this much money in, and these are the areas of my business that I know needed help. I still remember doing stupid things like we were just talking earlier about buying frivolous things. I bought frivolous branding at a cost of $13,000 from this award-winning agency, but that didn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
That did not help me sell any more products.
Right.
But from there, looking back, I can see what I did was I started to focus on these different areas of my business. I now call them the 5 pillars of retail success. Works in e-commerce as well. And what I would do is I would just focus on the one thing for 90 days. And there was no strategy involved. It was literally like, just put the blinkers on. This is kind of working. Instead of getting distracted by the next amazing thing, let's just see this thing through. And that was when we started to make more money. Yes, we needed the cash injection, but actually when I started focusing on just sales or just money, like understanding profit margins and negotiating deals with my suppliers to get those margins, to increase those margins, or when I started still buying from overseas, then I actually teamed up with another store who was my competition, but I teamed up with them to do an import, because then we could share the cost of shipping. We could share the cost of import duties.
Yeah.
Like we just kind of bundled it together, because even though we were in competition, there were only a handful of people in the whole country who were selling these things.
Yeah.
Fun fact, that person is now our creative director in my business.
No way. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we had always said, after we met, we were like, we should have just gone into business together. Like, we didn't know each other at the time, and it was a supplier that put us in contact.
Right.
Like, she is the creative person and I am the strategy person, and together we make a fantastic team. Yeah.
What product was that?
The product we got from America, they were called Planet-Wise wet bags. I actually so it's been 15 years, I still use those bags. So they're beautiful fabric on the outside, but they're waterproof on the inside. So we sold them because we had a baby store, we sold reusable nappies. So they were great when you were out and about to put your dirty nappies in.
Yeah.
But I now put my laptop in one when I travel to make sure that it's now waterproof.
Yeah.
We use them for swimmers. Shampoo and conditioner, like we could sell those things to anyone. And in fact, the two of us tried to go into business to become the distributor in Australia, because we were so passionate about it, but they just weren't interested. But if I can kind of give you a segue from that product about how we're changing topics here. I hope you can come with me on the journey.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So those bags and I don't have the numbers. If I've said this before and I say it's slightly wrong, I don't have the exact numbers in my head, but it was something along the lines of, in America, the bags retailed for, I think they were $24.99, and we used to only get a 30% discount. So realistically, with our exchange rate, we were actually paying about $24.99 for them, plus shipping, plus import tax. And I think we worked out they were something like either $27 or $29 landed to get them into our store. And then, so we would sell them for $39.99, which is still not a great margin, but it was enough to make it worthwhile. And they were traffic generators. Like, we had the largest range, both myself and my competitor. We would pick different ranges different prints, because obviously we had different target markets where we were. She was in Brisbane and I was in Sydney.
Right.
But we had between us the largest range, and we would also swap. Like, if someone wanted something, we would just go, oh, have you got one of those, and swap them over. But we had competitors selling the exact same product for $29.99, because they were seeing it like, okay, in America it's $24.99. Our customers won't pay much more. We'll make it $29.99. And so I think we worked out that they were making around about $1, and $1 didn't take out their overheads, their taxes that they had, nothing. Like, there's just $1 in revenue.
So they're probably just losing money net.
We worked out they were losing money. There was no possible way.
Right.
But remember, we were selling them for $10 more and selling out.
Right. Interesting.
So I guess one of the things that there's kind of so many things wrapped up in this story, which is one, I don't give a flying fig what your competitors are selling things for. Because if people come to you for the brand that you've created, you can charge anything you like.
This is really interesting. Okay, let's unpack that a little bit. Because,
well, can we just say then also, though, like, you have to know what your margins are. You have to know what your overheads are, because I remember reaching out to one of these competitors, because it was a really tiny industry, and saying, how do you manage to sell them for $29.99? Like, we've worked out landed, it costs us $27, $28. And she was like, oh, it just sounded like a good number.
So it wasn't a strategy. Because I figured
it wasn't a loss leader. No.
Yeah, I figured it's probably a loss leader to get people in the door. No. But you're saying it's not. So
no. And I can tell you this story over and over again about how we were charging more than our competitors. Sometimes competitors, they were only 2 minutes down the road. We would, something that someone else was selling for $19.99, we were selling for $29.99. Because at $19.99, our customers thought it was too cheap and that the quality wasn't as good. So we just did a test. We're like, oh, we'll put it up to $29.99.
Hold on. For this exact same product, or is it slapped on a different brand?
No. The exact same product.
That is strange. That is so strange. Wow. Okay. Because if I thought about, like, okay, if we're comparing a jacket that's brand A versus brand B, and they're priced differently, I'm going to use price as an indicator of quality. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But it's the same product of the same brand. Exactly. That's so interesting.
It's identical product. We bought same person, same thing. So here we have two products that I come to mind, where because we had built this brand of having great quality products, and I would never say we were in the luxury brand range. We were definitely that kind of upper middle class. Like, people had to have a disposable income to buy the kinds of products that we sold. But because we built this persona and we had this knowledge, and remember, we traded online and in store. Our in-store wasn't very big. We had a tiny little shop. Mm-hmm. So we were still selling these exact same products at a higher amount. But there are a few reasons. One is because we had an amazing level of service. Even back then, like, I look back now, sometimes, can I just say, if you are in business now and you're beating yourself up, like, trust me, you will look back in the future and go, oh my God, I was freaking awesome back then. Because I look at stuff that we did that just seemed normal to me. Like, sending out, remember, this was 2007, 2008. MailChimp was like one of the few email marketing, and it was a pain in the ass. You had to, like, put people in different categories, and you were paying more than double. But we got to the point where we developed these information series, like how to use products. And we would literally have an exercise book where we'd say, send Samantha Smith video 2. And we would send an email that was like, hey, there's nothing automated, because that didn't exist, or it didn't exist at a level that was affordable. That was a very enterprise level product, which is why I love e-commerce and retail now, because what we get for $75 or $50 or $20 was literally limited to people who were on Magento Enterprise back then.
Right.
And so we would do all these old school videos. We would show people how to use things. We developed cheat sheets, and we would call people up. Like, every day there was a diary where you had to write when someone did a specific type of purchase. You would have to write to contact them.
That is amazing for a retail store. And were you doing this for, like, select customers that were, like, high spenders, or are you doing it for everyone?
So high spenders, what we did for high spenders is, I think we had something like a $250 level for that. Is, again, we just literally had this book, like a diary, and it would be call Jane, order number X, to check in and see how they're going. So we would literally, my team had a KPI of call 3 people a day.
Okay.
And if it wasn't a high spender, it was just calling 2 people to ask how the service was. Like, just getting some kind of feedback, because those calls don't take very long. But what they do is they build that brand loyalty. Because how often does an actual business have a person who reaches out to you and says, how are you going with the products?
That's awesome. That's such a strong differentiator.
And it's not even expensive.
Well, it is time, right? I mean, if you're calling up every single one of your customers, that's bound to be expensive.
But it's not when you have a KPI of 2. And so sometimes what would happen, so true. three was like 1 high spender and then 2 others. So each person, 3, you get 3 connections. And these days I could have sent an SMS. Back then, there was no SMS. Like if you needed to SMS someone picked up one of their own personal phones and sent some pictures or some messages.
Yeah.
But and sometimes we didn't even get to talk to people. It was just leaving a voicemail to say, hey, it's us. We're just checking in. We just want to see how you go. If you've got any feedback or you've got any questions, give us a call.
Right.
But again, I think that idea, and let's be honest, you can hack this stuff these days. You can do whisper messages.
Yeah.
You know, you can do, I saw one the other day where you pre-record the video and then it fills in the person's name. Like the AI makes the guy's mouth move.
Okay, here's a really cool story. So I got a cold email once. I'm not gonna name names, but it's a good story, and they've done it really, really well. I get cold emails a ton, and you probably do too, Selena. And but this one caught my attention for a really interesting reason. Basically what the email said was something along lines of, I don't even recall what the subject line was, but it was really good. It was good enough to make me click, right? That's the whole point of the subject line. And I clicked on it. It was something along the lines of AI personalization on your outreach emails.
This may be the same company.
Really? Okay. And it might very well be. And I watched the video that they sent that was attached to the email. It was attached as a GIF, and I clicked on it and I saw the video, and it was like, oh, this person was speaking to me, and it addressed me by name as well, which was pretty cool. So and then the rest of the video was relatively generic, but I could tell that it was kind of pre-recorded and stuff like that. It kind of explained what the company did and how it could help. And it was at a point in my journey. It wasn't that long ago, a couple months back, where I was really curious about outreach strategies for my agency. And when I received this email, perfect timing. And at the end of the video, what shocked me was he revealed that the entire video wasn't actually recorded live by a person. It was an AI person that was speaking, converting text into voice based off this person's vocal profile and image, which is mind-blowing to think about. Because imagine the possibilities of personalizing every single video based off a script that you input into the software. And the script, by the way, can be further personalized based on, additional tags like first name, company name. You could even personalize the
product that someone bought.
The product that someone bought. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. So I booked a call and I had a chat with the guy. We didn't end up doing any business together, but it was still pretty cool.
It's probably not the same company, but the one that I saw, you sat down, it was an e-commerce one, and you sat down and you recorded the video. It'd be like, hey, Joshua, thanks so much for buying from us. We're super excited to get our package out to you. Like, here's a little bit about the brand, come back and join us. But the name part was the AI. And so and it was like, come here and give yourself a try. It didn't know how to work, Selena. It actually sent me an email saying, sorry, we haven't got that name in our list yet. So, but we've now added it in. And so, back then one of the things that we did, and, it's that, back in my day, we were one of the first people to try out the service Bonjoro, which is kind of a bit like BombBomb, which is you make the little videos for your customers. And so we tried it out. And so what we would do is, as we were packing orders, we would, shoot like a 20-second video that would be like, hey, Joshua, super excited to pack your order. This is my favorite thing, blah, blah, blah. It'll be out for you. It's going to be going out tomorrow. And I mean, nowadays, people are doing that just to prove that the thing went into the box, because there's so much problems with customers trying to claim that they didn't get things. But that little type of system, and that app actually integrates with Shopify these days.
Bonjoro.
But we would send, it's an Australian company.
That's Bonjoro. Am I looking at it right? Is that the company with the little bear?
Yeah.
Saying hello?
That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can connect it to Shopify. So as your orders are packed, you can send the video. And as a customer, that experience, like that is next level experience. You aren't getting that if you shop at, a big box store.
Yeah.
The great thing is even things like fulfillment centers, if you get a good fulfillment center, even they will be able to get on board with this kind of stuff. So it's not, but you're going even further. You're like, the AI is going to do it for you.
Yeah. This is cool. So how does this work? Bonjoro. Are they personalizing the emails at all, or is this...
So you can create the template, but essentially what happens is a little alert pops up when you download the app. An alert pops up that says, Joshua just made a purchase, or Joshua just purchased these shoes. And then you open it up and you just press the button, and it's all very lo-fi, record a video. Hey, Joshua, blah, blah, blah. And you've pre-made the template, which might say something like, hey, name tag, thanks so much for shopping with us. Here's where your order is at. And then you just press go.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's really cool.
But again, we're talking, 30 seconds. Even if you break this down in terms of dollars, the 30 seconds that would take to do is... it increases the customer lifetime value so dramatically, and it also reduces the rate of returns. So we did something similar in our business with our consulting and our training, which is every person who buys gets a personalized message from someone on my team saying thank you. So we have an app, same thing. We have an app. It sends a thing. Joshua just purchased. Hey, Joshua, super happy to have you on board. Please reach out and let us know if you need any help.
That's cool.
12 seconds, and Easy. Someone presses go. That reduces your returns rate exponentially. In fact, I'm just trying to think if we've even had any people trying to get refunds. I don't even think we have.
That's really cool. That's really, really cool.
We were talking earlier about profitability and profit margins and knowing your numbers. What are your competitors not doing? And like, you didn't know about this, so how many other people don't know about this? My people all know about this. But that differentiator for me, the cost, which what might be like 25 cents in terms of the labor to do that, you're going to get that back.
Right.
And people, potentially people share that if you've got some sort of, funny brand, or like you're really lighthearted, like that's the kind of stuff that people share on social media. That's your UGC that everyone wants to get. And so you even put that into the script. I'd love it when you get this, make sure you tag us on social media, like put the call to action in there, and people are going to remember that when they get it. So sometimes you do have to spend money to make money, but I think it all comes back down to how do you stand out? Because standing out means you can charge more. And I know personally that you can charge more for the exact same product as your competitors. And sometimes it's as simple as you have a bigger range. And so someone says to me, like, I'll be honest, I'm having this problem right now. I do a lot of lifting at the gym, and I like this particular protein hot chocolate and a particular protein casein powder for my smoothies, but no one sells both of them. And I get so frustrated because I don't want to pay $9.95 shipping from from two separate companies. But if someone sold both of them, I would potentially pay more, even if I was paying the same amount. Like if each of those people charged me $5 extra more, and
even just for convenience,
just the convenience, right? So it's understanding, and no, this is not new to anyone listening. It is really understanding, what do your customers actually want? And most of the time they won't tell you that. Most of the time they won't say, oh, I want the convenience to buy two different brands, because it doesn't come up until they're in that situation. And so now I haven't bought either. I'm out of both. I'm really frustrated. And I'm just like, right, so now we're going to have to pay $20 for shipping for these two different things. Or should I just not get the hot chocolate? But I actually need it to get my protein macros up.
Right.
It's like, no, you need it. You're going to have to get it. And now I'm just like annoyed at both companies that they don't have and I have not found any company that has the two things that I want.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Now, a quick segue here. So
Yes.
five pillars of retail success, the pillars of retail success.
Yes.
We talked a little bit about margins and sales. Tell me, what are the five, and what do you typically start first?
Okay. Money, which is understanding how money comes into, moves around, and goes out of your business.
So that's where
sales.
margins fall
That's
under.
where margins come in, inventory
Okay.
management, just your day-to-day overheads, even things like staff KPIs quite often sit in that pillar as well, because if they don't have any targets, then they're not going to make any money. We've got sales, which is the making of the money. So money, sales, customers. And customers is a really big one, because you've got to find them, you've got to catch them, you've got to connect with them, you've got to convert them, and then you have to keep them, and then you have to keep them coming back again and again. So there's actually like 6 different sections in the customer pillar.
Yeah.
So money, sales, customers, marketing, which is, telling the world that you exist, but also getting people to want what you sell. And what I find is people work on one or the other. So they work on just getting their brand out there, or they try and hammer at people why they should buy it. But very rarely do I see people who are running their own businesses and doing their own marketing putting both of those things together. So getting people to want what you sell, as well as telling the world that you exist. So money, sales, customers, marketing, and then impact. So impact is what a lot of brands focus on when they shouldn't be. Impact is, we say, building a brand, not just a store. So it is things like leadership. It is branding. It is getting into brand strategy. But so many people want to focus on the brand side of things. And I'm not talking about branding, but the brand stuff. And that's why they don't have any money.
Right.
And I say this from experience, right? That was me. I was so busy getting our brand out there and saying how amazing we were, and really digging into making sure that our customers thought we were perfect. But actually, the proof was in the pudding. I've had all the sales, but I didn't have the cash in the bank at the end of the day. So when I changed to working on my money pillar, which is generally where most people have to start off. Because even businesses that are doing well can always do better. And if I can get somebody, well, I have a guarantee. I will make you back whatever I cost you, whether that's $2,000, $25,000, or $100,000. Because if I don't, then you didn't get any value from me. You didn't get any value from our equation. You got no return on investment. If I only make you back $98,000, then you're out $2,000. So for me, it is always about finding a way that we can make someone more money really, really quickly. And it's not uncommon to make someone back their investment sometimes in a week. Because it is things like, but if you just called up your supplier and asked if you could get trade terms, how much money do we make if we can spend the money that you are going to give that supplier for the next 30 days to grow the business? Or if we get rid of first thing I always do is get rid of old inventory. That's great. I can make people thousands of dollars in a day sometimes. We did $20,000 in 3 hours for one client. So, again,
that's awesome. Yeah.
Paid $2,000, made $20,000 in 3 hours. Do you think that person's coming back?
Easy. Now, how do you think about we talked a little bit about this last time we spoke on conversion optimization strategies, and we touched on Afterpay and some of these companies that are making it easier, lowers the barrier to entry for people to make a purchase on items that typically would take a little bit longer of a consideration period of people thinking through things. Maybe it's like it's like a $100 purchase. But now with Afterpay, that's split up into 3 payments with no interest. It's easy for me to get a grip off, and I'm paying like $33, $35 a month.
We
Easy.
get 4 payments in Australia.
Oh, 4 payments. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's different in every country based on the financial regulations. In some countries, it's even 6, and some it's only 2.
Oh.
So yeah, it's all different based on financial regulations. But was the question what's my opinion, or did I just cut you off?
No, I want to know about how you think about conversion optimization. First of all, and what other tools you have your clients explore, and how do you make that choice? How do you make that decision? And we'll touch on the ethical side of things after that.
All right.
But yeah.
Can I start with how do I make that decision?
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty clear I like to make people money. Like, that's my thing. If I can make you money, everybody's happier. Because once we make money, everything else becomes easier because you can bring in people, you can outsource, but it also makes you happier in life. Like, you can give to charity. You can go and spend it in a local economy. You can go and stick it in the bank if that's what makes you happy. But you can do lots of good things when you have more money.
100%
and
agree.
so how do I make a decision when it comes to buy now, pay later? I would say, Afterpay is the market leader, certainly here, the US, and in kind of Asia Pacific. However, in the UK, it is probably Klarna because they were around for a lot longer. So I would say start with the one that is the most recognized in wherever it is that your customers are, because they're going to be the market leader, which means people are going to expect that. However, I know that, and this is the numbers in Australia. For example, Afterpay is 6% of the sale. And then someone like Klarna varies between 3 and 5. And there are other companies that sit kind of at that 3%. That's a lot of money that you're giving up. That's pure profit that has to go. So a few things. One is once you start implementing these and a cost comes into your business, you have to increase your prices. Most people can't absorb 3%. Or 6%. Like, for a lot of people, that's their profit on an order. So you can't just absorb that. Like, going back to the money pillar, when these things happen, how do you choose? Well, you make the money, you make a decision based on the return on investment. So the caveat there is sometimes you need to start out with the market leader, but once you have established your business and your customers, then sometimes I actually recommend you take that one away. Because most of the people who use buy now, pay later have more than one account with a company because they'll mix and match. And so if we can get rid of, we'll just use Afterpay in this example, as much as I love Afterpay, at 6%, if we can get rid of them after 3 months, 6 months, and move into one of the other brands where we now get 1, 2, 3% more margin, then that makes sense. But you've already educated the customer that you have a range of options and then one might disappear. And I can almost guarantee that the only people who are going to complain are the people who have low average order values. Like, good customers who have their accounts across several different companies, they'll just use one of the other ones. And so that's how I choose. But I would also say that I know from the stats that a person who buys with a buy now, pay later spends more money. Now, what I would say in terms of average average order value is always higher. But what I would also say there is going to your Afterpays, your Klarnas, I'm trying to think, Sizzle, I think is one of the ones in the US.
Sizzle, yeah.
Well, asking them, what is the average order value for your clients? Because I know here in Australia, on something like Afterpay, it's 120, but on Klarna, it's 220. So which one would you rather have? The one that their customer demographic spends almost double the amount as the... So there's a few things to take into account, but I see lots of people who have all of them, but they don't sit down and go, all right, so how much of our money is coming in from each one of these?
Yeah.
And what is the value of, like, how much profit am I making on the average order value from an Afterpay or a Klarna or a Sizzle? Do I need them all?
Interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So on the upside, the downside calculation is easy, right? You're taking like 3 to 5% or 6% off your net on those transactions, and you could put a couple of assumptions around like percentage of sales using buy now pay later. But what about the upside? The upside's a little bit tricky. Obviously, there's that AOV expectations. So there's that delta of how much additional money that you're making. What about the long term? Do you consider LTV, and do you look into those metrics at all for people using Afterpay? Are they a little bit more loyal or less?
But I only have the stats for that. Klarna are great with stats. So their lifetime value is much higher as well. But it kind of stands to reason. And look, that's in Australia. It might be different in different countries. So don't just this is not financial advice.
Of course, yeah.
So having that understanding of, well, actually the demographic who uses this buy now, pay later is very different to the demographic. So I'll be honest, I don't even have a buy now, pay later. The only buy now, pay later I use is PayPal Pay in 4 because it comes up at checkout. Like, it's just easy.
Right.
But I don't need to. I have a credit card. Like, just put on my credit card and pay it off. But my next door neighbor, who is very well off, loves using it because she will do, I guess, something different to what I do. And I guess this is the demographic, because this is not me, is she will go and buy 4 different things at 4 different stores, knowing that she was paying in 4. So instead of spending $100, she spends $400 and then pays the $100 a week over the 4 weeks. So for her, it's like, well, why wouldn't I use it? It's not that I don't have the money.
Yeah.
It just means I buy more stuff.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
I think there's a combination here. One is you got to know your people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want the people who are the defaulters on Afterpay. You know, they're only out there buying the sales stuff, $50 average order value, you know, doing just what they have to get to free shipping. You want those people who are doing those higher levels because it means they can buy more. And you was talking about the ethics of it, and this was the conversation that we had, which is you don't get to it's the same as credit cards. You don't get I guess no one died and made you the financial god of somebody else that you have no idea about their circumstances. That is the financial institution's fiscal duty to check in to see whether somebody can afford it or not. It is not your job to decide whether they can afford it or not. And so I think we get hung up on this. And I know I was talking to you about how we're going to bring financing in for some of our higher value packages. And I'm probably very different to everyone else. I don't mind paying interest. If I have a choice of spending $30,000, you know, let's just say to work with, I don't know what you charge, but let's just say it was a $30,000 package. Yeah. And I have the choice of spreading that out over several years, and my first payment's $1,000, but now I've got $29,000 that I can use to continue to grow my business and make more money in the process. It is worth it to me for the $300 worth of interest that I would pay in that month, because I'm pretty confident I will make more spending that $29,000 than $300.
Makes sense.
Yeah, but lots of people don't think about it like that. A lot of people think that debt is bad, and debt is only bad if you haven't sat down and worked out the return on investment.
Yeah, and if you know productive means of utilizing that capital, then it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, like buying $2,000 microphones.
Man, that got me tempted. Microphones. Now, here's an interesting one. On the cost side of things, I have a friend out here in my part of the world, in Singapore, who has negotiated a deal with one of these bigger buy now pay later companies by pitching them against their competitors, and they run pretty a high volume of sales consistently every month. Like we're talking 8 figures in revenue a month, so really high volume. And he has and I really don't think that you got to be making 8 figures a month to do this.
I don't think you have to either. You have to. It's the same as your bank, right? If you have a home loan, you go there and negotiate. Yeah,
exactly.
The more transact. It's the same as your merchant facilities. If you're processing it's the same with PayPal. If you're doing a higher volume, but you have to ask. They're not going to come out and say, "Hey, we'll give you a better rate." Yeah,
exactly. You got to ask, and what he got out of it was really interesting. Because his business is so big, they actually paid him to use their software on his website.
It's pretty impressive.
And offer that as an option. So he basically got the first X number of transactions free, and on top of that, he got paid cash just to use the app as part of the contract. And as part of the contract, you got to have that
as well, right? Like that, they love promoting that
exactly,
kind of, especially to their own merchants. Like
exactly,
here's John. He's doing 8 figures, and 70% of it is done through Afterpay. Like he's now got a new revenue channel, which is getting him to push people into using that buy now, pay later, because it's actually in his benefit. So he's a smart guy, right?
Yeah.
But even if you're not doing 8 figures in revenue a month, sometimes something as simple. I actually did a podcast on this with Klarna actually about how they very rarely get merchants who come up and say, "Can I do some kind of promotion with you?" I'm like, someone has to do those promotions.
Like turn up a win-win, basically, right? Like I'll promote, I'll promote Klarna. You give me a better rate, and we all win. That's kind of the deal.
So there's lots of in-app advertising in a lot of these buy now, pay laters now, and of course they're sending out emails to their merchants, but also to their end consumers. So if you're being featured on a regular basis in an Afterpay newsletter to consumers, bet your bottom dollar that someone's going to click through, aren't they? And if you're getting that for free, all you have to do is ask. Exactly.
Selena, I hate to end this conversation. I think we're getting a lot out of it, and we might just have you back for part 2. But this is amazing for people listening. What's the best way to connect with you? And I know you got your podcast, so give that a shout as well.
Yep, bringing business to retail. But look, I always talk about e-commerce. It's just a bit of a SEO feature, bringing business to retail. And like we were talking earlier, sorry, just to cut in again, which we've been around, like this podcast has been around since 2015. And so it's, I think, 450 plus episodes.
Yeah. You're going to be at 500 this year.
Yeah. I mean, don't go back to the beginning. They were pretty crap back then. But it's been interesting to see how the world of retail and e-commerce has changed. And I am a tech nerd. So I am all for all the apps and all the things. But I love the fact that having that bricks and mortar retail experience as well is always great for bridging the gap, because e-commerce always needs to try so hard to find a way to recreate the in-store experience. And if you don't know what that in-store experience is, then you've got no chance of recreating it. So that's a wrap. I'd love to hear what insight you've gotten from this episode and how you're going to put it into action. If you're a social kind of person, follow me at @TheSelenaKnight and make sure to leave a comment and let me know. And if this episode made you think a little bit differently, or gave you some inspiration, or perhaps gave you the kick that you needed to take action, then please take a couple of minutes to leave me a review on your platform of choice. Because the more reviews the show gets, the more independent retail and e-commerce stores just like yours that we can help to scale. And when that happens, it's a win for you, a win for your community, and a win for your customers. I'll see you on the next episode.